Some fathers explode. They slam doors, throw chairs, make a scene so loud. The story stops being about the wound and starts being about the noise. I am not that father. My name is Malcolm Reed. I am 54 years old. I supervise maintenance at a cold storage warehouse on the south side of Nashville, Tennessee. I drive a 2012 Ford F-150 with one blue door because the original door lost an argument with a loading dock. I drink gas station coffee. I own 3 good shirts. And I have eaten the same ham and cheddar sandwich for lunch since Obama was president because improvement is not always necessary. I also wrote a check for $43,600 so my daughter could get married in a private garden downtown, under string lights, with 186 people watching. She used that wedding to tell those 186 people that I was the man she had worked her whole life not to become. And I just sat there, smiled, straightened the collar of a suit I bought on clearance, and let the room laugh. I did not know then that the coldest justice of my life was standing 27 minutes away, holding a wine glass at table 6. Welcome back to Dad's Sliant Justice. Before we get into it, comment where you are listening from and what time it is there. I always like knowing how far a quiet story can travel. And if these stories keep you company, subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing, but it helps us keep telling stories about fathers who stayed calm when everyone expected them to break. My daughter Jenna was 27 when Tyler Walsh proposed to her on the pedestrian bridge over the Cumberland River. Tyler was a good man. That matters later. So remember it. He was not loud, not flashy, not the kind of man who needed every room to admire him before he could relax in it. He worked as a junior analyst for a commercial real estate investment firm, wore Navy suits that actually fit him, and listened before he answered. The first time I met him, he asked me what kind of refrigeration system we used at the warehouse, and then waited for the answer like he truly cared. 3 Saturdays after that, Jenna came to our house in Donaldson with a folder, a laptop, and the expression of a woman who had already lost a financial argument in her head and decided to win it in person. She sat at our kitchen table, the same table where she had done middle school science projects and once spilled purple nail polish into a crack that is still there if the light hits right. Denise made coffee. Jenna did not drink hers. That told me the number was going to be bad. Dad, I found the place, she said. It's called the Cordell. She turned the laptop around. There were pictures of a restored old building, a garden lawn, tall windows, warm wood, white flowers, and the kind of lighting that makes ordinary people look like they come with a soundtrack. It's in downtown Nashville. Ceremony and reception on site. Private garden. Great hall. Everything flows. How much? I asked. She looked down, then up. Venue. Catering. Rentals. Service fees. And the deposit on the planner together are $39. eBay. The band and flowers would put it closer to $43. Lubay. I nodded like those numbers had not just walked into my chest and sat down. $43,600 was almost exactly what I had in an account Jenna did not know existed. I had started it when she was 15. After the divorce had settled into its permanent shape, and after I realized birthdays and school supplies were not the same as a future, I called it the storm account. Not because I expected disaster, but because I knew every child eventually meets weather her father cannot stop. I can cover it, I said. Jenna froze. Not dramatically. Jenna was never dramatic unless she had selected the lighting herself. But her fingers tightened around her coffee mug. Dad, no, I didn't mean all of it. I was hoping maybe half. And Mom said she and Bradley could help with the rehearsal dinner. I said I can cover it. Her face changed. For 1 second, the polished woman disappeared, and the little girl came back. The one who used to climb into my truck after school and tell me every injustice committed by every teacher in Davidson County. She came around the table and hugged me hard. Thank you. Daddy. She had not called me Daddy in years. I put one hand on the back of her head and looked at Denise over her shoulder. Denise's eyes were wet, but she nodded once. That meant, do it. That meant this is what the money is for. I wrote the check that night. I put it inside an envelope from our electric bill because we did not have anything nicer. Jenna laughed when she saw the logo through the paper. I laughed too. The next morning, I drove to work, ate my ham and cheddar sandwich at 1214, and did not tell anyone that the account I had built dollar by dollar was gone. It did not feel like loss then. It felt like a father being useful in the only clean way money can make you useful. Here is the part I need to explain carefully before anyone decides this is a story about a bad daughter and a good father. People are rarely that simple. Jenna loved me. I believe that. I still believe it now. But she had learned a certain way of loving me. And that way came with a little glass wall between respect and affection. She could hug me, call me when her car made noises, ask for advice about a mortgage, and still speak to me as if I belonged to a smaller version of the world. Some of that was the divorce. Jenna's mother, Marla, and I split when Jenna was 14. Some of it was money. Some of it was Marla's new life in Franklin with Bradley, a dentist, where every kitchen surface was stone and every conversation had a college name hidden in it somewhere. Jenna spent school years with me in Donaldson and summers with her mother. My house had a chain-link fence, a charcoal grill, and a laundry room that smelled faintly of motor oil, no matter how many candles Denise bought. Marla's house had vaulted ceilings, wine storage, and a neighbor who once referred to the garage as the carriage bay with a straight face. I did not resent Marla for building a shinier life. Adults are allowed to reinvent themselves, even when the reinvention hurts someone else's pride. What I missed, because fathers miss things when they are busy making sure the lights stay on, was how Jenna had started comparing the two worlds and assigning meaning to the difference. Her mother's house meant ambition. My house meant comfort. Her mother's husband meant success. I meant loyalty. Nice, safe, useful loyalty. By the time Jenna was in her mid-20s, she had a way of correcting me that sounded like kindness until you heard it too often. If I said something cost a fortune, she said, "Well, Dad, in this market that's actually normal." If I called a restaurant fancy, she smiled and said, "It's upscale, casual, not fancy." If I said Tyler had a good job, she explained the difference between commercial real estate and development finance, as if I had asked what a stapler was. Denise saw it before I allowed myself to. One night after Jenna and Tyler left our house, Denise stood at the sink rinsing plates and said, "She talks down to you." I was drying a fork. "She talks fast. There is a difference." "Malcolm." "What? She interrupted you 5 times during dinner and explained your own thermostat to you." I said, "It was a smart thermostat." Denise turned off the water and looked at me. "You spent 28 years keeping refrigeration systems alive in Tennessee summers. You do not need a 27-year-old explaining a thermostat to you." I laughed because she was right, and because laughing was easier than admitting the sentence hurt. Then she said the part that stayed. "You wrote a check for $43. Lube. And she still treats you like an old instruction manual." I did not answer. I put the fork in the drawer. Some truths are not arguments. They are weather reports. The wedding was the 3rd Saturday in May. Nashville had already started warming up. But that evening was merciful. The kind of soft southern evening that convinces people to forgive humidity before humidity has earned it. The cordell looked exactly like the pictures. The garden was green and carefully lit. The old building held the kind of charm that makes exposed brick seem like a moral achievement. Everything smelled like peonies, bourbon glaze, expensive perfume, and money leaving someone's bank account. The ceremony began at 5:30. Jenna walked down the garden aisle on Bradley's arm first, then mine. That had been the compromise. Marla had suggested it gently. Jenna had presented it carefully. And I had agreed because I did not want a wedding memory shaped like a tug-of-war. Bradley smelled like expensive soap and nerves. When he handed Jenna to me halfway down the aisle, he whispered, "Thank you for this, Malcolm." I believed he meant it. That made it harder to dislike him, which I found inconvenient. Jenna was beautiful. There is no other honest way to say it. Her dress was simple in the way expensive things are allowed to be simple. Her hair was pinned back with tiny pearls. She looked grown, radiant, and frightened beneath the polish. When Tyler saw her, his face opened completely. No performance. No calculation. Just love hitting him in the chest in front of everyone. I thought, good. That is the right man. That is the right reaction. The reception moved inside and out, exactly as Jenna had promised. Cocktail hour in the garden. Dinner in the great hall. Music low enough that Ruth did not threaten the band. I sat at table 9 with Denise, Ruth, 2 of Marla's cousins, and a retired teacher who had apparently taught Jenna in 5th grade and remembered every child as spirited. Table 6 was one table over. That was where Tyler's boss sat, a man named Graham Ellis. I had met him for maybe 90 seconds during cocktail hour. Graham Ellis was in his early 60s. Trim, silver at the temples, and calm. In the way men are calm when no one has told them no in a decade and they have not needed to abuse it. He was a managing partner at Cumberland Meridian, Tyler's firm. He shook my hand, looked at my name tag, and paused for a fraction of a second. Malcolm Reed. He said, "Good to meet you." I said, "Same here." I thought nothing of the pause. At weddings, people are always trying to remember whether they have met you before. The toast began a little after 8. Tyler's brother went first. He told a story about Tyler trying to build a treehouse at age 11 and accidentally creating a ladder to nowhere. It was funny, clean, and short. A blessing. Then Jenna's friend Lacey spoke. Lacey was polished, emotional, and exactly the kind of friend who knows how to cry without damaging makeup. She talked about college, loyalty, and watching Jenna become the woman she was meant to be. People dabbed their eyes. I smiled. It was all going the way weddings go. Then Jenna stood. I remember being proud. That is important. I did not feel a warning. I did not feel the floor tilt. I saw my daughter stand in a white dress with a microphone in her hand. And I thought, there she is. My girl. The one who used to practice book reports in the hallway and ask me if she looked confident. She looked confident now. Completely confident. I want to talk about where we come from. Jenna began. Her voice carried beautifully. Because marriage is not just 2 people. It is 2 histories agreeing to share a future. People murmured approval. I took a sip of water. I grew up between 2 very different worlds. My mother taught me to reach. She taught me that elegance is a discipline, that ambition is not something to apologize for, and that a woman should never shrink to fit a room. Marla smiled with soft pride. Bradley put a hand over hers. All fine. All normal. Then Jenna turned slightly toward our side of the room. And my dad. She smiled at me. People turned. I smiled back. My dad taught me something different. My dad is a maintenance supervisor. He fixes freezer doors, argues with compressors, and believes a really great evening involves a grill, a folding chair, and a football game he can yell at. The room laughed. I laughed too. That was true enough. He drives a truck with 1 blue door. She said, bigger laugh. I lifted my glass a little. Guilty. When I was a kid, his idea of vacation was Percy Priest Lake with a cooler full of bologna sandwiches. His idea of fine dining was the place where peanuts are on the floor and the waitress calls you honey whether she likes you or not. More laughter now. Denise's hand moved under the table and found my knee. Not a squeeze yet. Just a warning. Jenna kept smiling. He is a simple man. A very simple man. And when you grow up with 1 foot in that world and 1 foot in a world that tells you more is possible, you have to make decisions about what parts of your history you carry forward and what parts you lovingly leave behind. Something inside the room changed, but only in the corners. I felt it before I named it. The laugh did not land cleanly that time. My mother Ruth went very still. Denise's fingers tightened. Jenna's voice stayed warm. That made it worse. I am grateful for my dad's steadiness. I really am. But I am also grateful that my life with Tyler begins in a place built on vision, education, and the courage to want bigger things. She turned toward Tyler's family. To the Walshes. Thank you for welcoming me into a family where success is not whispered about but celebrated. To my mom and Bradley. Thank you for showing me what refinement looks like. To Lacey. Thank you for believing I belonged in rooms I was once too scared to enter. And to Tyler. Thank you for building a future with me that feels bigger than anything I knew how to imagine. She raised her glass. My name did not come back. The check did not exist. The account did not exist. The electric bill envelope did not exist. Table 9 did. The applause came, because people applaud at weddings when a bride raises a glass. Even when their hands are confused, I heard it spread unevenly through the room. I saw Marla's smile falter. I saw Tyler look at Jenna with a small crease between his brows. I saw Lacey stare down at her champagne. I felt Denise's hand clamp around my knee with enough force to leave a memory. I did not move. I did not stand. I did not say, "I paid for the private garden you are using to outgrow me." I did not announce that the man with the one blue truck door had written the largest check connected to this entire evening. I did not give anyone a video to post. I just sat there, smiled as much as my face could still manage, and adjusted the collar of my clearance suit. And I did not notice, not right away, that Graham Ellis at table 6 had stopped applauding before everyone else. He had gone still, not offended still, not awkward still, recognizing still, the kind of stillness that happens when a locked drawer inside a person's memory suddenly opens. Here is something I have learned from machines and from men. The quiet ones usually hold the most pressure. A compressor does not announce that it matters. It simply keeps the room cold until the day it stops. And then everyone understands its value at once. I had lived most of my adult life like that. Working, fixing, paying, returning calls, showing up at school events in boots. I had cleaned in a gas station bathroom. Jenna had mistaken quiet for small. She had mistaken ordinary packaging for ordinary contents. What she did not know was that the man at table 6 knew my name from a very different room. Graham Ellis set down his glass. He leaned toward the woman beside him, Tyler's aunt, I think, and said something I could not hear. She looked at him, then looked at me, then covered her mouth. Graham stood. Slowly, he buttoned his jacket, walked toward the front, and held out one hand to the DJ. The DJ, who had the survival instincts of a man paid by the hour, gave him the microphone without a fight. "Forgive me," Graham said. The room settled almost immediately. Some people have voices that ask. Some have voices that close doors. Graham's did both. I know the formal toasts may be finished, and I promise I will not keep anyone long. My name is Graham Ellis. I work with Tyler at Cumberland Meridian, and I have had the privilege of watching him begin a career with uncommon patience and intelligence. Tyler looked confused but respectful. Jenna smiled cautiously, still thinking, I believe, that this was another tribute to the world she had just praised. But I am not standing here to talk about Tyler. Graham continued. I am standing here because I heard something tonight that I cannot leave unaddressed. And I want to be careful. Because weddings are delicate rooms. But sometimes a room becomes delicate because everyone is pretending not to have heard what they heard. No one moved. Earlier tonight I was introduced to the father of the bride, Malcolm Reed. I heard the name, and it bothered me because I knew it. I spent most of dinner trying to place it. He turned toward me. Then, during the bride's speech, when she mentioned maintenance, compressors, and cold storage, I realized exactly where I knew it from. My mouth went dry. About 10 years ago, Graham said, a small control system called Blue Valve began appearing in a handful of industrial refrigeration facilities across the Southeast. It did not arrive with a marketing campaign. It did not come out of a famous lab. It was not attached to a venture capital story or a founder doing magazine interviews. It simply worked. Denise's hand moved from my knee to my wrist. Ruth whispered, "Oh, Lord." But she whispered it like a woman who had been waiting for the Lord to arrive with receipts. Blue Valve solved a problem that had irritated facility engineers for years. Graham continued. It reduced energy waste during defrost cycles in large cold rooms without compromising temperature stability. That may sound small if you have never paid the electric bill on a refrigerated distribution center. It is not small. Across a portfolio, it is the difference between bleeding money quietly and saving it quietly. The room had become so silent I could hear the ice shift in someone's glass. Our firm later acquired several properties where Blue Valve had been installed. I saw the numbers myself. I sat in meetings where engineers praised the elegance of that system. One of them said, and I remember this because engineers do not give compliments freely, That whoever built Blue Valve understood machines the way musicians understand silence. He looked directly at me. The man who designed Blue Valve from scratch is sitting at table 9 in a clearance suit. After being described as simple, no applause. Not yet. Just the sound of 186 people collectively understanding that the floor had moved. Let me tell you about Blue Valve. Since I never told Jenna, I built it over 5 years on nights, weekends, and one particularly ugly Thanksgiving when the turkey was dry and the compressor at work failed at 2 a.m. The idea started with annoyance. Most useful things do. I had spent years watching industrial freezers waste energy because defrost systems were too blunt. They did what they were told on a timer, whether conditions needed it or not. That meant heat introduced when heat was not needed. Compressors working harder afterward. Temperature swings. Frost returning like an unpaid bill. I was not an engineer by degree. I had 2 years of community college, 28 years of maintenance, and a stubborn dislike of waste. I bought used textbooks. I watched lectures online. I taught myself just enough programming to be dangerous and then enough to be useful. I built the first prototype from salvage sensors, a controller bought on clearance, and parts I probably should not have kept in a coffee can labeled maybe someday. Denise called it the science fair from hell. For 3 years it failed in new and educational ways. Then it stopped failing. The system learned the room instead of obeying the clock. It adjusted defrost timing based on door openings, coil temperature, humidity, product load, and recovery behavior. It saved energy. It stabilized temperature. It made machines work less stupidly. That was the technical description I could have given. The father description was simpler. I built something because I was tired of watching power get wasted while I was trying to save money for my kid. A regional mechanical contractor licensed it first, quietly. Then a refrigeration controls company bought the rights. I made enough to pay off the last of the house, replace Denise's car, help my mother with medical bills, and start the account that became Jenna's wedding. I signed the final paperwork in a conference room where the coffee came in tiny cups, then stopped at a roadside place for ribs because celebration does not require linen napkins. The following Monday, I went back to work. The freezer did not care that I had sold an invention. It still needed maintenance. Why did I not tell Jenna? I have asked myself that more times than anyone else ever could. Partly because she was 16 when the first money came in. And 16-year-olds have a talent for turning any parental announcement into either a burden or an embarrassment. Partly because Marla's house had already become the place where success had vocabulary. And I did not want to drag my quiet thing into that competition. Mostly, though, because Blue Valve was mine. Not secret because I was ashamed. Secret because I wanted one thing in my life that did not have to prove itself to be real. Graham did not know any of that. He only knew the work. I want to be precise, he said, and his voice had sharpened now. Not with anger but with respect. Blue Valve has been installed, adapted, or built upon in facilities moving food and medicine across several states. The original architecture saved companies money. Yes, but it also helped keep temperature-sensitive inventory stable. That matters. Quiet work often matters more than loud work. He turned slightly, taking in the room. I have met many people in my career who needed applause before they could finish a sentence. Malcolm Reed built something useful, licensed it without a parade, used what he earned to give his daughter a beautiful wedding, and then sat there while a room laughed at the word simple. Now he looked at Jenna, not cruelly. That would have been easier to forgive. He looked at her with disappointment, which is heavier. Miss Jenna, he said, your father may enjoy folding chairs, grilled food, and a truck with a mismatched door. None of those things are evidence of smallness. Sometimes they are evidence that a man knows exactly what matters and does not need decoration around it. He turned back to me. Mr. Reed, I have wanted for years to meet the person who built Blue Valve. I regret the circumstances, but I will not regret saying this. The work was elegant. The impact was real, and whatever else anyone calls you tonight, simple should not be one of those words. He lowered the microphone. For 1 second, the room held its breath. Then my mother Ruth stood up. She is 80, as I said, and 5 feet tall. But when Ruth Reed decides to clap, history pays attention. Her applause cracked through the room like a starter pistol. Denise stood next. Tyler stood next. Then table 6. Then the back of the room. Then everyone. Or close enough that the difference did not matter. The applause rolled over me in a way I did not know what to do with. I had spent most of my life avoiding attention the way some men avoid snakes. Suddenly, attention had found me wearing a suit that still had a discount tag crease in the sleeve. I stood because staying seated felt ungrateful. I nodded once to Graham. My throat was too tight for words. Denise pressed her shoulder into mine. Ruth was crying openly and clapping like she meant to bring down a wall. Marla had one hand over her mouth. Bradley looked like a man reassessing an entire family map in real time. Jenna was not standing. She sat at the head table, glass untouched, face white under the makeup, eyes moving from Graham to me to the room and back again. I knew that look. It was not just shame. Shame is simple. This was calculation collapsing. This was the private filing system inside her head catching fire. The blue truck door, the clearance suit, the lake vacations, the ham sandwiches, the electric bill envelope, the check. The pieces had not changed. The label had. Tyler leaned close to her and said something. She did not answer. He looked at me across the room. His face was pained in a way that made me feel sorry for him, which I had not expected to feel during my own humiliation. He mouthed, "I'm sorry." I gave him a small nod. He was not the problem. A good man can love someone and still learn something terrible about how she sees the world. After Graham handed the microphone back, people came to our table in waves. Some were strangers. Some were Tyler's relatives. Some were Marla's friends who had spent years thinking of me as the ex-husband with the truck. They shook my hand. They said words like impressive, remarkable, humble. I accepted them because rejecting kindness makes people work harder, and I did not have the energy to manage anyone else's discomfort. Graham came over last. He did not make a production of it. He simply held out his hand. I shook it. "I hope I did not turn your daughter's wedding into something worse," he said. I looked toward the head table. Jenna was still sitting. Tyler had his hand over hers. "I think it already became what it was." I said, "You just turned on the lights." He nodded slowly. "Blue valve deserved to be said out loud." "Maybe." I said. "No, maybe." He answered. "I have seen the utility reports." That almost made me laugh. In the middle of everything, the man had offered validation in the form of utility reports. I respected him immediately. About 15 minutes later, Jenna came to table 9. The band had started again. But softly, people were dancing in the careful way they dance when the room has survived an earthquake and everyone is pretending the floor is normal. Jenna stood beside my chair with both hands clasped in front of her dress. That was how she used to stand when she had broken something and hoped honesty would reduce the sentence. 2 tears had made clean tracks through her makeup. "Dad," she said. I looked up. "Yenna." "I didn't know," she said. "I swear I didn't know about Blue Valve." "I know you didn't." Her mouth trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. Not the bride. Not the woman who had just turned me into a punchline. My daughter. The person whose fever I had monitored at 3 a.m. The person whose bike I had run behind until she screamed, "Let go," and then got furious when I did. The person I had loved longer than she had known how to speak, because it belonged to me. I said, and I didn't want to hand it to anyone who needed it before they could respect me. She flinched. "Dad, I respect you." "No," I said quietly. "You love me. Those are not the same thing." Denise went still beside me. Ruth looked down at her napkin. Jenna swallowed hard. "I thought I was being funny," she said. "I thought it was affectionate. I thought people would understand that I meant you were steady." "Yenna," I said. "You stood at a microphone, at a wedding I paid for, in a venue I paid for, with flowers I paid for, and told 186 people I was something you had to lovingly leave behind." Her tears came faster. I know that now." "Do you?" I asked. "Or do you know it because Graham stood up that stopped her?" I did not say it to be cruel. Cruelty has heat. This was cold, clean, necessary. If he had stayed quiet, if he had never heard my name, if Blue Valve had remained what I chose to keep private, you would have gone to sleep tonight, proud of that speech. Maybe a little pleased that people laughed in the right places. She tried to answer. Nothing came out. That told me the answer. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I believe you are sorry. I said, I do. But sorry is not a broom. It does not sweep the thing away just because the room got messy. Can you forgive me? She asked. There it was. The sentence she needed. The bridge back to the evening she had planned. Forgiveness would let her cry. Who may repair the photograph and return to being the bride whose wedding had a dramatic but ultimately touching moment. I wanted to give it to her. That is the part people who like justice stories do not always understand. I wanted the clean ending. I wanted my daughter back without the work. I wanted to say, of course, because fathers are built to reduce pain when their children stand in front of them crying. But love is not the same as rescue. No, I said. Her face changed as if I had spoken a language she did not know. No, not tonight. I said, maybe not for a long while. Maybe not in the way you want. Dad, please. I love you. I said, that has not changed. But forgiveness is not a wedding favor. You do not get it handed to you before you leave because it would make the ending nicer. She covered her mouth. Tyler had risen from the head table but stayed several feet away. Close enough to come if needed. Wise enough not to interrupt. You have work to do. I said. Not speeches. Work. Different choices. Different eyes. You have to learn who I am without needing a stranger in a suit to certify me first. Jenna nodded. But it was the nod of someone receiving a verdict. Not yet, someone understanding the law. I stood. Denise stood with me. Ruth stayed seated because Ruth wanted to say something and knew better than to improve on silence. I touched Jenna's shoulder once. She leaned into it for half a second like a child. Then I let my hand fall. Enjoy the rest of your wedding. I said, Tyler is a good man. Be careful with good men. They notice more than you think. Then I walked away. Graham caught me in the small lobby near the front. The old building was quieter there. Through the doorway, I could see the garden lights and hear the music returning to a normal volume. Denise had gone to get Ruth's wrap. Graham held a business card in one hand. I meant what I said. He told me. About the work. I know. I also meant that there may be opportunities if you ever want to consult. No pressure. No performance. Just people who understand the value of what you built. I took the card. I appreciate it. He studied me for a moment. May I ask what she said? She apologized. And I told her I couldn't forgive her. Not tonight. Graham's expression did not change much. But something in his eyes softened. That is a hard thing to say to your child. Harder than writing the check. I said. He nodded. For what it is worth. I think there is mercy in not pretending. That sentence stayed with me. There is mercy in not pretending. I put the card in my pocket as Denise appeared with Ruth's wrap folded over her arm. She looked at my face and did not ask if I was all right. Denise rarely asks questions when she already knows the answer. The three of us walked to the truck. Nashville was warm and damp and alive around us. Broadway was not far away. But from that parking lot, the city sounded distant. Like another party we had not been invited to and did not need. Ruth climbed into the back seat with the careful dignity of a queen entering a farm vehicle. Nobody spoke until I started the engine. She came over. Denise said. She did. What did you tell her? That I love her. That I couldn't forgive her tonight. Ruth made a sound from the back. Not approval exactly. More like satisfaction with a correct measurement. Denise looked out the windshield. Good. I glanced at her. You don't think I was too hard? Denise turned to me then. Her face was calm, but her voice had steel in it. That girl rehearsed those words. She did not trip over a cruel thought. She polished it, put it in a toast, and served it with champagne. I pulled onto the street. She cried. I said, she got caught. Denise answered. Then she cried. Maybe understanding comes later. Maybe it has started. But tears are not proof. They are weather. Ruth leaned forward from the back seat. Your father, God rest him, used to say a person can step on your foot by accident, but if they look down, aim. And press. That is not an accident. I almost smiled. Dad said that no, Ruth said, but he would have if he had thought of it. That did make me laugh. Quietly, the truck carried us east toward Donaldson, one blue door and all. Steady in the way. Old machines are steady when they have been maintained by someone who understands them. Jenna called the next morning. I watched the phone ring on the kitchen counter while coffee brewed. Denise stood beside the sink and said nothing. I let it go to voicemail. She called again Sunday evening, then Tuesday, then the following week. I did not answer. Not to punish her. Punishment requires a plan. I simply did not have words that would not either wound her further or comfort her falsely. And I had lived long enough to know silence is sometimes the only honest thing you can give. Tyler texted me in June. Mr. Reed, I know this is not mine to fix, but I want you to know I am sorry I did not understand what Jenna was saying before she said it. I should have known. I respect you very much. I read it twice. I showed it to Denise. She said, "Good man." I wrote back, "You are not responsible for her speech. Take care of your wife. And take care of your own heart, too." He replied with, "Yes, sir." That told me more about him than a longer message would have. In October, I finally listened to the voicemails. I did it in the truck during lunch, parked behind the warehouse where the shade hit afternoon. The first messages were what I expected. Careful. Rehearsed. Dad, I know I hurt you. I know what I said was wrong. I want to talk when you're ready. The kind of apology that sounds like it has been edited by guilt and fear. The later ones changed. One from late June said, "I keep remembering you teaching me to ride a bike. I remembered telling people Mom taught me because it sounded better with some story I was telling in college. She didn't. You did. You ran behind me for 2 blocks in work boots. I don't know why I erased that. I am sorry." One from August said, "Tyler and I drove past Percy Priest today. I used to tell people those trips were boring. They weren't. I remember you letting me pick the worst campsite because I liked the tree near it. I remember you burning hot dogs and pretending they were Cajun. I remember being happy. I don't know when I decided happy wasn't impressive enough." The last one was from 2 weeks before. "Dad, I am not calling to ask you to forgive me. I know I don't get to set that clock. I just want you to know I am trying to see you without borrowing someone else's eyes. I am sorry for making you small so I could feel larger. You were never small. I was just standing too far away. I sat there with the phone in my hand until my sandwich got warm. Then I saved the message. I did not call back that day. But for the first time, not calling felt less like a locked door and more like a door with a light under it. Jenna and I spoke for the first time in February. It was not cinematic. No rain. No swelling music. I called her on a Tuesday after work while sitting in the truck with the engine off. She answered on the second ring, then said nothing for 1 second too long. "Hi, Dad. Hi. Yenna." She started crying immediately, but quietly. "Ilitya." Then I said, "I listened to your messages." "Thank you," she whispered. "I am not ready to pretend it did not happen. I don't want you to." "Good," I said, "because I can't." We sat in silence. The kind phones are usually built to prevent. Then she said, "Can I ask you something, maybe? Will you tell me about Blue Valve someday? Not because I need to brag about it. Not because it changes what I did. I want to know what I should have known about you." I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. Grease in one cuticle. A scar near my thumb from a condenser panel in 2009. Ordinary hands. "Mine. Someday." I said, "Okay." "And Jenna, yes, your lake trips were better than you remember." She laughed and cried at the same time. "I know that now." "No," I said. "You knew it then. You just forgot on purpose." She inhaled sharply. "You're right. That was the first brick. Not the whole bridge. Just the first brick. But real things are built that way." I did not forgive Jenna that night at the wedding. I do not regret that. Quick forgiveness can be another kind of lie. And I had told enough polite lies to protect other people's comfort. What happened between us afterward was slower and less satisfying to anyone who likes neat endings. She came by Ruth's house. She asked questions. She stopped correcting me when I spoke. Then, more importantly, She caught herself wanting to, and apologized before I had to notice. She sent Denise flowers on Mother's Day with a card that said, "Thank you for defending him when I should have been honoring him." Denise cried in the pantry where she thought I would not see. Forgiveness did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like a machine coming back online after a long repair. One sound at a time. One light at a time. A hum you do not trust at first. Then slowly stop fearing. I cannot tell you the exact day I forgave my daughter. I can tell you the day I realized I no longer rehearsed what she had said every time I saw her face. That was close enough to grace for me. As for Blue Valve, it is still out there in systems I will never visit. Inside cold rooms holding food, medicine, flowers, and things people need kept safe. It does not know my name. It does not need to. Good work rarely asks to be admired. It just does what it was built to do. My truck still has one blue door. I could fix it now. I have had the money more than once. I do not fix it because every time Jenna sees it, and she smiles in a way that hurts a little and heals a little. Last month she asked if I would let her pay to paint it. I said no. She asked why. I told her, some reminders are cheaper than therapy. She laughed because she knew she had earned that one. Some fathers flip tables when they have been wronged. Some fathers raise their voices so the room knows they are bleeding. I did not. I sat at table 9, adjusted my collar, and let the truth take its time, walking to the microphone. Cold justice is still justice. Sometimes it just enters the room in a good suit and says your name correctly. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Dad's Slant Justice for more family stories about quiet fathers, hard lessons, and the truth that always finds its way to the table. And leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there. Somewhere out there, another dad is sitting quietly, and he might need to know he is not alone.